Hi, my name's Janice, and this is my theoretical design of Intimate Apparel by Lynn Nottage. I decided to do this play because this play is absolutely, it's amazing. It has heartbreak, it has romance, it has, deep female friendships, and it explores some really important themes that are so relevant in our society today. I decided to do a theoretical design because of COVID 19. As you know, COVID 19 has really affected theater in many ways, and it's really affected my education as wanting to be a costume designer. Because theater has been so limited, I've had limited opportunities to hone my costume design skills. Internships have been canceled, design opportunities have been canceled as well. So after speaking with my advisor, we decided that me doing a theoretical design would be really good for me, to help me hone my rendering skills and research skills, but to also help make me a better potential candidate for grad schools and professional jobs outside of the academic field. One thing I did to challenge myself with this design and to help me become a better designer is design this play digitally. I used ProCreate for the first time. Whenever I first took my costume design class, we did it with watercolors, with watercolor paper. We learned painting techniques. So I basically had to relearn how to do my renderings with this costume design. So a little bit about the play. This play was written in 2003 by Lynn Nottage, and it was actually inspired by her grandmother. While she was cleaning out her grandmother's house, she actually found an old photo of a woman holding two children. This kind of sent her down the rabbit hole with the play. This play was first produced in the Roundabout Theater in New York. One thing that I thought was really cool because I love the actress is that Viola Davis actually played Esther in this production. Some really important themes of this play are race and class, sexuality, friendship, and gender. I really hope to explore these themes through my costume design. So, a little bit about the period. 1905 was during an era of change, not only with fashion, but with what it was like to be a woman and a person of color. A really important aspect of this play are the undergarments, especially corsets. In fact, every scene of the play is named after a corset that Esther has made. Um, Women's undergarments are really important in this play. In fact, two characters are only seen in corsets and basic undergarments while they're on stage. So I kind of wanted to list the amount of undergarments that women had to wear during this time period. So they had to wear a chemise, drawers, stockings, a corset cover, and petticoats, usually more than one. And one thing that's really important about this specific era is that the shape of these corsets changed in the early 19th century. So in the pictures shown on this page, they're all wearing something called the S corset, which completely changed the shape of women's fashion during this period. So men's undergarments aren't as important in the play, but I thought it would be helpful to mention their undergarments as well during this period. Their undergarments were nowhere near as intense as women's undergarments. They just had to wear an undershort, drawers, stockings, and garters to hold up their stockings. So a lot more basic than women, and they didn't have nearly as many layers, but I thought it was important to mention. So Intimate Apparel really focuses on city life as a woman and a person of color. So a huge amount of people were moving into the city to look for better work. Many of the POC people, well, African American people who migrated from the city, were children of slaves. They did whatever they could to blend in and had to change so many things about themselves. So African American hairstyles completely changed in this century. They started straightening their hairs using special chemicals to tone down the curls. And this really damaged the hair, and they did whatever they could to assimilate themselves with, the white upper class. Um, So women in this time period had very little rights and freedom. They were bound by their husbands, and person of color women, especially African American women, had even less rights, let alone non-married women who were of color. Um, so Intimate Apparel really explores these things in this play, so I thought it was important to mention because I plan on exploring this through my costume designs. One thing that's really important to me as a costume designer are colors. I love using colors to help define a character's personality and show relationships between characters with colors. So that's something I really focused on in my costume design of it. So to start off, there's Esther. She's 35 years old. She's African American and she's a seamstress. I chose blue for Esther because I immediately, as I was reading this play, blue was my color for Esther. Whenever I first read through a play, the first thing that comes to my mind is what color do I want to dress this character in? And whenever I read Esther, I just immediately knew her color was blue. So blue, um, the color blue is often associated with seriousness, cleanliness, knowledge, coldness, and sadness. Um, so I really feel like this blue shows Esther's personality so well. She has a lot of coldness and sadness in her, but there's also a knowledge, a intelligence about her. Esther is such an intelligent woman, and I feel like blue really best fits her. Some research images that I found for her. I was able to find some actually specific images of African American women in this period. So the picture to the right, the upper right corner, whenever I saw that picture, I immediately thought of Esther. In my mind, that's how I imagined her dressed, and I was so lucky to find that picture. So my renderings were actually based a lot on that specific picture. So, as I said earlier, this design is not finished. So these are my my third round of renderings. Um, so the one to the left is Esther in the first scene. The one all the way to the right is Esther whenever she visits um, Mr. Mr. Marks. Yes, Mr. Marks. Um, I haven't talked about Mr. Mark's design yet, but his color is yellow, but you'll learn more about that in a minute. So whenever I designed Esther, I wanted her to be wearing a pale yellow floral shirt underneath her jacket. Um, I wanted that color on her because it showed the relationships between the two of them and the friendship between the two of them. For her wedding dress, it's white with some blue lace and blue ribbon. I wanted blue is her color, so I definitely wanted to have some type of blue in her wedding dress. The next character is Mrs. Dickson. I love this character, and whenever I thought of her as I was reading her, the first color that came to my mind was magenta. And I think that just fits her personality so well. So the meaning of pink slash magenta, um, the color is also often associated with tenderness, acceptance, and love, but also it comes with sternness as well. Mrs. Dickinson is a very stern character who has very strong opinions. She's in her 50s. She married good. She's motherly, stern, and reliable. But she's also very fashionable. And I feel like pink just perfectly fits her. To tone that down, I'll talk about that in just 1 minute. But these are some of the research images that I found. The one to the left, this dress on the left was the dress that I saw it and I was like, that is Mrs. Dickinson's dress. I just thought it perfectly embodied her character. So going back, the unfinished rendering I have is doesn't have the color in it, but I put in black stripes to really tone down that magenta and to help show the maturity of her. The next character is Mrs. Van Buren. Mrs. Van Buren is a wealthy woman in her 30s. She's stuck in a loveless marriage, and she's a friend to Esther, or at least she thinks so. I had her as a lavender slash purple, so things associated with this color, ceremony, and mysteriousness. And I feel like all of these things really go with Mrs. Van Buren's personality. Um, Mrs. Van Buren is one of the characters who's only seen in her undergarments. So whenever she comes on stage, she's always in a corset or a corset with petticoats. I plan on having her in a lingerie dress, which is the bottom image to the right, to help cover her up, but also show the corset underneath. I wanted to have her in very light lavender colors. The next character is Mr. Marks. Mr. Marks is a Jewish immigrant. He's in his 30s and he sells fabric to Esther. Whenever I read the character of Mr. Marks, I just thought yellow. He has a sadness about him like Esther, but whenever I read their scenes together, I thought that they just brought out a light in one another. They had such a wonderful friendship, and whenever Esther is with Mr. Marks, I felt that she really felt happiness and joy and was just happy to be around him. So that's why his main color will be yellow. Some research images. The one to the bottom left-hand corner is research images of the working class. I really want him in a simple pants, simple vest, kind of worn down. But it is going to have some pops of yellow in it. I do want his vest to be yellow. The next character is George. George is Esther's husband, the man that she ends up marrying. His personality is very, I wouldn't say angry, but he kind of deceived Esther on what he was really like in his letters. Um, the color I have associated with him is red. Red means passion, power, aggression, danger, love. Um, and I feel like this George brings out this in Esther, but he's not necessarily a good thing for her. He's African American, he's in his 30s, and he worked on the Panama Canal. Some research images, I actually got the image on the right are actually workers from the Panama Canal. So whenever he comes into the city, I plan on having him in very ragged clothes. And then as he progresses and the longer he's been married to Esther, his clothes will be getting nicer. The last character is Mayme. Mayme is African American in her 30s and a prostitute. The color I had for her is green. Green is the color of jealousy, service, misfortune, but also generosity. I think Mayme and Esther have a very unique friendship, but in some ways, Mayme is jealous of Esther. Some research images. Mayme is another character that is only seen in a corset. So I plan on having her in a long dark green robe with a lighter green corset. I plan on having her hair up with lots of flowers in it. So that is what I have so far for my costume design of this. As I said, this is a challenge for me. Designing on ProCreate, but overall, I think this project helped me become a better costume designer, and I am really looking forward to exploring this play even more and going even more in depth with my costume designs.